You know that feeling when you start a game just to try it out and suddenly it's 3 a.m., you forgot to eat, and you're already planning your next play session before you even finish the first one? Yeah, that's exactly what this list is about. These are the kind of games that don't just pass time, they stick with you. The ones you buy once and somehow keep coming back to years later. In this video, I'm walking you through 15 games that genuinely feel worth every single penny. Not because of hype, not because everyone says so, but because of how they actually feel when you play them. The moments, the freedom, the emotions, the just one more mission energy that never really stops. No overthinking, no complicated talk, just real gamer experience like I'm sitting here telling you what actually hit different for me. And trust me, some of these games might surprise you. Baldur's Gate 3 is one of those games where you sit down thinking you'll just play for an hour, and next thing you know, you're deep in a conversation trying to convince a demon, a vampire, and a talking skeleton to work together while your real life just fades into the background. It doesn't even feel like a normal game. It feels like you're actually inside a living world where every choice matters, and somehow, even the smallest decision comes back later in ways you didn't expect. What really hits is how personal it gets, like your story is completely different from anyone else's, and that makes every playthrough feel fresh, no matter how many times you return. There's this moment when everything clicks. You realize the game is not holding your hand at all, it's just watching what you'll do next. You can talk your way out of fights, you can mess things up completely, or you can turn a simple situation into a full-blown disaster just because you chose one dialogue option too confidently. And weirdly, that's what makes it so fun. It never feels like you're doing the right thing, it just feels like your thing. And the companions, man, they don't feel like background characters. They argue with you, they react to your decisions, they remember what you did hours ago, like it actually mattered. That's the part that sticks with you after you close the game. After a game like this, it honestly makes you rethink what an RPG can even be. Then there's Elden Ring, and honestly, this is one of those games that doesn't care about your comfort at all, and that's exactly why it hits so hard. You step into this massive broken world with almost no real guidance, and for a moment it feels overwhelming, like you're way underprepared for what's out there. But then something changes. You stop following instructions and start just exploring, and suddenly every direction feels dangerous but exciting at the same time. You'll be riding across empty lands one second, and the next you're getting absolutely destroyed by something you didn't even see properly, and instead of quitting, you just laugh and go back in. What makes it special is how it rewards curiosity. You see something strange in the distance, you go check it out, and it usually leads to something way bigger than you expected. A hidden dungeon, a brutal boss fight, or just a moment where you realize the world is way deeper than it first looked. And the best part is, nothing feels handed to you. Every small win feels earned, like you actually survived it, rather than the game letting you through. And that feeling of finally beating a boss you've been stuck on for hours, that's not just satisfaction, that's pure relief mixed with pride. It's the kind of game that keeps testing you, but somehow makes you want more of that pressure. Then there's Stardew Valley, and this one hits in a completely different way. You don't go here to be stressed or pushed around, you come here to breathe a little. You start off with nothing but a broken down farm, and at first it feels simple, like, okay, I'll just plant a few crops and see what happens. But before you know it, your days start filling up in the best way possible. You're watering crops in the morning, running into town to talk to people, then suddenly it's evening and you're like, wait, where did the day go? What makes it so addictive is how peaceful it feels without ever becoming boring. There's always something to do, but nothing is forcing you. You can go mining, fishing, decorating your farm, or just spend the whole day talking to villagers and slowly building connections that actually start to feel real. And weirdly, those small routines start to matter more than anything else. And then the seasons change, and it hits you that time is actually moving forward in this little world you built. Your farm looks different, your progress is visible, and somehow it feels personal, like you actually built something from scratch with your own pace and choices. After a game like this, you don't just think about gameplay, you think about comfort. That quiet one more day feeling never really leaves. Then there's Terraria, and at first it looks like just a simple 2D world where you're chopping trees and digging dirt. But the moment you go a little deeper, it completely flips on you. You start underground thinking you'll just find some basic ore, and suddenly you're lost in caves filled with danger, rare loot, and things you were definitely not ready to fight. It has this way of slowly pulling you in, where every small upgrade makes you think, okay, I can go a bit further now. And that's how it gets you hooked without you even noticing. What really makes it special is how free it feels. There's no fixed path telling you what to do next. You can build massive bases, go full exploration mode, or just focus on fighting bosses one after another. And the bosses themselves feel like milestones, like the game is constantly opening new layers the more you push into it. One moment you feel strong, and the next moment the game reminds you that you've only scratched the surface. And the creativity side is insane too. People build entire cities, traps, crazy structures, and it all comes from the same simple tools you start with. That's what makes it stick. It grows with you, not against you. And just when you think you've seen everything, the game throws something new at you and pulls you right back in again. Then there's Monster Hunter World, and this one is pure adrenaline once it clicks. At first, it feels like you're just dropped into a big ecosystem where everything is huge, aggressive, and way out of your league. You pick a weapon, go out on a hunt, and suddenly you're tracking this massive monster through forests, deserts, and snow areas like you're actually part of a living food chain. The first time you land a clean hit on something that looks impossible to beat, it feels different. Not just I did damage, but more like, okay, I might actually survive this. What really pulls you in is the preparation before every hunt. It's not just running in and attacking. You're planning, crafting, learning patterns, and slowly understanding how each monster behaves like it's a real creature. And when the fight actually starts, it turns into this intense back and forth where one mistake can flip everything. You're low on health, the monster is enraged, and somehow you're still pushing forward because quitting just doesn't feel like an option anymore. And then there's that moment when you finally take one down after a long fight, and everything goes quiet for a second. It's not loud victory, it's more like relief mixed with respect for what you just went through. That loop never really gets old. And honestly, this is where things start getting even more interesting. Because the next few games on this list take that one more try feeling to a completely different level. Then there's the Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim, and this is one of those games that just drops you into a massive world and quietly says, go do whatever you want. No pressure, no strict path, just pure freedom. You can follow the main story if you feel like it, but most of the time, you don't. You'll start heading somewhere for one quest, then suddenly you're climbing a mountain, discovering a random cave, getting involved in a vampire attack, and completely forgetting what you were originally doing. What makes it so memorable is how alive the world feels in its own strange way. You'll walk into a small town and end up in a conversation that turns into a full quest line, or you'll loot something you probably shouldn't have, and suddenly half the city is after you, and instead of feeling annoyed, it just becomes part of the story you're building without even planning it. And then there's that feeling of becoming stronger over time. You start off struggling to survive basic fights, and slowly you turn into this character who can take down dragons like it's just another day. That progression feels earned, not rushed, and you actually notice how far you've come just by looking back at where you started. Skyrim is the kind of game where you don't really finish it, you just stop playing, and somehow still come back months later like nothing changed. Then there's Red Dead Redemption 2, and this one doesn't even feel like a game sometimes. It feels like you're living inside another era. From the moment you step into that world, everything is slow, heavy, and grounded in a way that pulls you in without asking for attention. You're riding through massive open landscapes, hearing the horse breathe, the wind cutting through the trees, and it just feels real in a way that's hard to explain. You're not rushing anywhere, you're just existing in it. What really hits is how much detail there is in everything you do. Even simple things like walking into a town, talking to strangers, or just sitting by a campfire with the gang starts to feel meaningful. The world reacts to you in subtle ways, and over time, it makes you care about people you didn't expect to care about. It's not just about missions, it's about moments. Quiet ones, emotional ones, the ones that stay in your head long after you stop playing. And then the story starts to build weight. You can feel things shifting, friendships getting tested, and the whole journey slowly turning into something deeper than just survival. There are parts that hit you unexpectedly, not because they're loud or dramatic, but because they feel real. By the time you've spent enough hours in that world, it doesn't feel like you're playing a character anymore. It feels like you've been part of something you can't really go back to. Then there's Hades, and this one is pure chaos in the best possible way. You go in thinking you'll just do a quick run, maybe learn the controls, maybe die a few times, and reset. But then it hooks you with this rhythm where every attempt actually matters. You die, you come back stronger, and somehow each run feels like a step forward instead of a failure. It's fast, it's loud, and it never really gives you a chance to get comfortable for too long. What really makes it stand out is how alive everything feels, even though you're stuck in this repeating cycle. Every character you meet reacts to you differently, depending on how many times you've failed, how far you've gone, or what you've discovered. And the combat just keeps evolving. You start off button mashing a bit, but slowly you realize it's all about timing, movement, and building a run that actually fits your style. And then there's that feeling when a run finally starts clicking. Your upgrades line up, your attacks feel smooth, and suddenly you're not just surviving, you're flowing through enemies like you actually belong there. And even if you die right after, it doesn't feel like losing. It feels like you're always getting closer. This is the kind of game that makes just one more run turn into hours without you even noticing. Then there's Cyberpunk 2077, and honestly, this is one of those games that pulls you into its world the second you step out into Night City. Everything just feels alive in a loud, messy, futuristic way. Neon lights everywhere, crowded streets, random conversations happening around you, and this constant feeling that something is always going on whether you're part of it or not. You're not just playing a character here, you're trying to survive in a city that never really slows down. What makes it hit different is how personal it can become. One moment you're doing a high-stakes mission, and the next, you're just walking through the city at night, listening to the atmosphere, realizing how deep everything goes. The choices you make actually start to shape how things unfold, and that gives every decision a bit of weight. Even the side stories don't feel like fillers. They feel like little windows into different lives inside this massive world. And then there are those emotional moments that sneak up on you when you least expect it. A conversation, a decision, or a quiet scene that suddenly changes how you feel about everything you've been doing so far. It's not just action and chaos, it's also reflection. After spending time in Night City, it sticks with you in a weird way. You don't just remember the fights or the missions, you remember the mood. Then there's The Witcher 3, Wild Hunt, and this is one of those games that just pulls you in so deep you forget you're even doing quests. You start off thinking it's just another fantasy RPG, but very quickly it turns into this long journey where every road you take leads to something unexpected. You're riding through muddy villages, dark forests, war-torn lands, and every place feels like it has its own story happening in the background, whether you're involved or not. What really makes it special is how every side quest actually feels important. You're not just collecting tasks, you're stepping into small stories that sometimes hit just as hard as the main one. One moment you're hunting a monster, and the next you're dealing with a choice that doesn't have a clean answer. And that's what sticks with you, the fact that nothing feels black and white, everything has weight, even the small decisions. And then there's Geralt himself. Calm, controlled, but still somehow pulled into this massive world that constantly demands more from him. Watching his journey unfold, the people he meets, the consequences that build up over time, it all starts to feel personal in a way you don't expect from a game this big. By the time you've spent enough hours in this world, it doesn't feel like you completed a game. It feels like you lived through it for a while. Then there's Project Zomboid, and this one doesn't try to make you feel powerful at all. It does the opposite. You spawn in, grab whatever you can find, and within minutes you realize this world is not on your side. Every door you open, every house you enter, every sound you make, it all matters way more than you expect. It's slow, tense, and honestly a bit stressful in the best way, because you're always one mistake away from everything going wrong. What makes it so intense is how real the survival feels. You're not just fighting zombies, you're managing hunger, fatigue, injuries, and even small things like being too loud or staying out too long. You'll think you're safe in a house, board up the windows, settle in, and then suddenly you hear something outside, and your whole plan changes in seconds. It keeps you alert all the time, even when nothing is happening. And the crazy part is, you start caring about the smallest progress. Finding a few cans of food, securing a safe room, surviving just one more night, it all feels like a win. But the game never lets you relax for too long, because it always reminds you that survival is temporary. It's the kind of game where every run becomes a story, even if it ends badly. Then there's Slay the Spire, and this one looks simple at first, like just cards and numbers on a screen, but it sneaks up on you in a really addictive way. You start a run thinking you'll just experiment a little, maybe learn the system, and suddenly you're deep into a build that actually starts working perfectly together. Every choice starts feeling important. Do you take the safer path or risk it for a stronger reward later? And most of the time, that one decision decides how the whole run goes. What really keeps you hooked is how every run feels different. You're never playing the same game twice. One time you're going heavy on defense, another time you're going all in on damage and hoping it works out. And when a build actually clicks, it feels so satisfying because it didn't just happen, you slowly shaped it from scratch, fight after fight. And then there's that moment when you think you've got everything under control, and the game throws something at you that completely messes up your plan. But instead of feeling unfair, it just makes you want to try again smarter, better, more prepared. It's one of those games where losing doesn't really feel like losing, it just feels like part of learning the system. Then there's Valheim, and this one feels like you've been dropped into a calm world that slowly turns into something way bigger than you expected. At first, it's just you, a few basic tools, and this quiet wilderness that looks almost peaceful. Until you realize everything out there can actually kill you. You start small, chopping trees, building a tiny shelter just to survive the night, and that's where it hooks you. That simple, let me just finish this little base, turns into hours without you noticing. What makes it special is how everything feels earned. You don't get strong quickly. You struggle, you explore carefully, and every new area feels like a real step forward. Then you start sailing, and the game completely opens up. Suddenly, it's not just your starting island anymore. It's this massive world full of mystery, danger, and places you don't understand yet. And that sense of discovery hits hard every single time you find something new. And building in this game just hits different. It's not just placing walls, it's actually creating a place that feels like yours in the middle of this harsh world. You'll go from a tiny shack to something that actually feels like a home you're proud of. It's peaceful, but never safe. Relaxing, but always unpredictable. Then there's No Man's Sky, and this one honestly feels like stepping into pure space freedom. The first time you land on a random planet, you just pause for a second because you're not sure what you're even looking at. Weird skies, strange creatures, oceans that don't feel real, and this constant sense that you're somewhere nobody has ever been before. And the crazy part is, that feeling keeps coming back, planet after planet. What really makes it stick is how relaxing it can be without ever feeling empty. You're just drifting through space, upgrading your ship, scanning life forms, and slowly building your path across the universe. One moment you're stranded trying to fix your equipment, and the next, you're flying between systems like you actually belong out there. It's that constant shift between survival and exploration that keeps it interesting. And then there's base building and discovery. You find a planet you like, set up a small base, and suddenly it becomes your little corner of the galaxy. A place you can always come back to, even when everything else feels massive and unknown. It's the kind of game that doesn't rush you at all. It just lets you exist in space. Then there's Kingdom Come, Deliverance, and this one feels like you've been dropped straight into a real medieval world with no shortcuts, no magic, no safety net. From the very start, you're not a chosen hero or anything special. You're just a normal guy trying to survive in a harsh time where everything feels grounded and unforgiving. Even simple things like fighting or learning new skills take time, and at first, it honestly feels a bit overwhelming. But the more you play, the more it starts to click in a really satisfying way. You begin to understand how everything works, how to fight properly, how to read situations, how to actually survive instead of just rushing in. And that slow growth makes every small win feel huge. Even something like winning a tough fight or completing a difficult quest feels like you actually earned it through patience, not power. What really makes it stand out is how real everything feels. The world doesn't adjust to you, you have to adjust to it. You mess up, you deal with consequences. You prepare well, you get rewarded. And that balance makes every decision feel important, even the small ones. And by the time you really get into it, you stop thinking about it like a game, and more like a journey you had to learn step by step. And yeah, that wraps up the list. Honestly, every single one of these games has that just one more hour kind of energy. The kind that somehow turns into an entire night without you even realizing it. From massive open worlds to tight survival loops, they all hit in their own way, but they all have one thing in common. They stick with you long after you stop playing. Now I want to hear from you. If you had to jump into just one of these games right now, which one are you picking first? And why? Drop it in the comments. I read them all.